Yeah, so um, the medical model looks at the woman from the outside, like an object to be treated, and she gets observed throughout labor. But there's no real connection because it's a male dominant, it's created by males. So they don't really know how to connect with a woman or what is actually happening inside of a woman when she's giving birth. So she doesn't really get supported with what she is feeling. And so a lot of the interventions are seen as violence and just not being treated like they would like to be treated.
Yeah. So male meaning it's about controlling the situation and.
Well, male because males can't give birth. So males have been have taken over childbirth in the last 200 years, and so have created a scientific knowledge on childbirth based on observation. So there's no recognition. Science didn't even listen to what women had to say about childbirth. It was merely observing them and treating them a bit like guinea pigs. No.
So not an experience, but.
The women became experiments in the 50s. It was like when they started screaming, they were tied down, they were drugged, and I mean it's all over medicine, but in childbirth it's very strong. That control and that experimentation, and really no openness to listening to women, like as though it wasn't scientific.
Okay, so can you explain how that way of viewing childbirth affects women who are maybe thinking of having their baby in that system? How will that affect them emotionally or mentally or spiritually?
So childbirth is a completely emotional event because it's tied to our hormones. Hormones are tied to our emotions. So it's actually, when we're talking about safety, we always talk about safety as being in a hospital, being in a safe environment. But really safety means letting the hormones dance like they have to. So a woman can just, because birth is a physiological event. Birth is a natural event. So women will naturally do it when they're in the right atmosphere. So now we know scientifically that the hospital isn't the right setting because it scares them.
Yeah.
So the emotion that comes out is releases adrenaline. Yeah. Yeah. So the hospital setting induces a setting that induces fear, and fear induces the creation of adrenaline, and adrenaline stops the birth process.
Right. Causes women maybe to close up.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So as far as your book, what inspired you to put this message out there and to write this book?
Well, really the book is a form that I can connect my knowledge with all of the women around the world, because I think, like me, having given birth to 8 children and having supported over 1,000 births at home, I feel like I want to spread the message to more people.
Yeah.
To more women, to more families, and make it a book that they can really use in their context. No, maybe they can't find that traditional midwife, but they can understand what they need for the birth to happen in a safe way for them.
Yes. So is this for women, in addition to women who, do you think women who are having their baby in hospital maybe, or a birthing center could use this book, or?
Anyone. It can be a woman, a midwife, a woman who wants to give birth in a hospital, a woman. It just talks about truths, about, what to expect. I think the first baby is always where we're so lost and we need to find someone. So it talks about our emotions and how we have to face them in this whole process of becoming a mother, whether we want to face it or not, right?
Yeah. Okay. So maybe explain your particular philosophy and model of traditional midwifery. What makes it different and unique in the way that you think about this and practice?
So I studied natural medicine, homeopathy. So that has like natural medicine has a cosmovision, has a vision on health and pathology, and it's all about bringing in balance. And then I came here to the Mayan jungle, and the midwife who taught me, Doña Antonia, she's a Mayan midwife, and I lived here, I had my babies here, and I learned the traditional Mayan midwife way, and it's amazing. It showed me so much about, like, we had so many births that weren't in the book, and everything always turned out fine, and I was like, but wasn't that meant to be an emergency? And wasn't this meant to go wrong? And I just started seeing things. So like now traditional midwifery is really facing extinction. And we need to find a way to share this with other women, that they can learn from it. And there's so much wisdom in it. And it's for the women as well. It's not just for midwives.
You mentioned like Mayan midwifery and the traditional version of midwifery. How might that be different than what Western people know as midwifery and what's practiced in?
Yeah, so midwives are really medicine women, right? They need to learn a medical system. So midwives in Europe or trained midwives in schools learn the modern medical system. So pathology is seen as there's an agent that comes and we have to destroy it. Traditional midwives have the same vision as alternative medics. So the traditional midwives are traditional medicine women. So they know when something goes wrong, we have to, if the woman has too much fire in her system, she needs like to balance it out. So we balance it out with words, because they go through emotions, through herbal procedure, the teas and stuff, and then also like manual with massage and things like that.
So
Heat and cold.
A more holistic understanding of.
Yeah, because if we balance the woman, she'll be fine.
She'll heal herself.
Yeah.
Okay. So in your vision or ideal, what does maybe the ideal experience look like for, obviously it's different for every woman, but maybe you can explain.
Yeah, I think that the ideal, if a woman is really prepared, and so preparation is, a lot of times we understand, we have to do exercises, we have to eat right, but it's also a mental and emotional preparation. Because in birth you have to know how to let go. So women who can really let go easily and go into the process, that's the ideal birth, that the woman is doing everything herself and I'm just there as her guardian watching out that everything is fine.
Yeah.
That's the ideal. But then we have long births that need a lot of support from the people around, a lot of presence, a lot of word medicine, a lot of filling the pool, emptying the pool, and being able to be with the person in those most difficult times, because a lot of times the birth care provider gets scared and then needs to transport.
So from what it sounds like, it's like that's the spiritual element of this. It might not be, many women might not be aware of that the process is spiritual.
The process is extremely spiritual, and that's what's missing in the modern care, and that's what's missing in also the modern midwifery care, the spirituality. Because so in traditional midwives usually have had their children, so they have this compassion, they know what the woman is feeling, and every step of the way they've been there as well. So there's kind of this coaching, right?
Yes.
And there's also a connection that we make. So like as a midwife, I'm there, but I'm also connecting to the woman at each stage where she's at. and trying to feel and hear and see. So the woman, sometimes we feel resistance, and then as a midwife we say, you know, let go, let it all go, and then that's a very spiritual experience, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much pain and there's so much suffering, and then letting go and then transcending it is just very empowering. One man said, oh, now I know why they call it spiritual experience, because spiritual experiences need to be sweat and blood and tears.
Yeah.
And that's what we all have at the birth, right?
Yeah.
And I think supporting me as a midwife, I train midwives that haven't had children to understand, to read that.
Yeah.
You know, like for women who've had children, also to explain, you see, now she's there. That's where she's at. That's where we're going to get her through.
Yeah.
And I think also for the woman in this book, she'll learn, oh, okay, this is where I'm at. Okay, I'm going to get through it. So somewhere my words will be there with her at the birth.
Yes.
Subliminally. And so my vision is really that every woman has this amazing experience at childbirth, this transformation. Because I had it when I had my first baby. I had a spiritual enlightenment and awakening, and I said, no, I want every woman to feel this. This is incredible.
Yeah.
For that, we do have to face our fears.
Yes.
And we have to make decisions like, other people, who do we want around and who do we want to let in?
Yes.
So a lot of some women are very into their birth, and they can just do it, and they don't care if there's an ambulance there or there's people talking. They're just gonna birth.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. But a lot of women are influenced by the outside surroundings a lot.
Yeah.
And then it all stops.
Creates more friction.
Yeah.
And maybe you can go into that if, like, you talk about like the procedures of medicine and how they're solving kind of the problem that they created for themselves based on this fear. So that's where you get into maybe a cesarean or epidural.
Well, in a hospital, there's different layers. So one is like your treating doctor or your treating birth team who has like all these, we have to watch out for red flags, and we have to watch out this doesn't go too long and whatever. And then you're also dealing with hospital bureaucracy, and they both hit you. Because hospital bureaucracy, for instance, would say, okay, no woman can be in the birth room longer than 6 hours, because then we have to move her to the next. So like that affects the birth team, and saying, hey, we need to break her water back so this can move on, right?
Yes.
So she won't end in a C-section.
Yes.
But then it's not on the woman's terms.
Yes.
So like dealing with hospitals is like you're dealing with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Some hospitals have certain guidelines, like they just say every woman needs an episiotomy, a cut in the vagina, because that will make the birth 20 minutes shorter.
Yes.
Okay, so if your hospital has that guideline, that's what they're gonna do, whether you need it or not.
Yes.
I had one woman who had her baby, and then they cut her because the baby came so fast. She didn't have a rip, and the doctor said, "Well, I have to cut you, otherwise I'll get how do you say? I'll get reprimanded because I haven't done everything by protocol."
Yeah.
So you can, I mean, it's an extreme case, but like things like that happen. And then you have your birth provider who you have to connect with the 9 months really, and understand, is this person really gonna, can that person handle their shit? You know, like, can that person handle fear? And how can they handle difficult situations? Because birth is always difficult. There's no like clear-cut line.
Yeah.
That this is emergency. It's always like, yeah, maybe. And some women can, yeah, like I learned it. A lot of times it's not an emergency.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Now I totally am getting into it.
But I think this is the important stuff, and I think that that's what people may not realize is like you're mentioning, there's a timetable for when things need to happen, and that's realistically based upon money and
Yeah.
profits and
And that room has to be empty for the next client.
right. And that's not like you said, that sometimes is it's directly pushing against your experience
Yeah.
and your awakening or your
So even birth centers have that.
Yeah.
So birth centers are I mean, midwives are the most, we're blamed for everything that goes wrong in childbirth, right?
Yeah.
Basically, even if we didn't do it, like sometimes, yeah, but she did talk to a midwife sometime in pregnancy. So this is like a social stigma we have.
yes.
So really, birth centers, they have to follow protocol.
Yes.
Because if something happens in that birth center and they didn't do things right, that birth center will shut down
Yes.
much faster than a hospital that didn't do anything right.
Yeah.
So a lot of birth centers are also like, a lot of women are considered high risk. Every woman is nearly considered a high risk today. So
Yes.
it's high risk to have your first baby. It's high risk to be over 35. It's high risk to be under 18. You know, it's like it's hard
Yeah.
not to be high risk to have a baby.
Yeah. Okay. I think like another thing that I can talk about in our experience is like the fears around having births at home, and we're all conditioned to think that safe is hospital. So maybe you can describe a little bit about why, how to have a safe birth at home, and what that entails, and maybe the experience of having a birth.
Well, Michel Odon, he's famous. He's the father of humanized birth. He always said the first birth it's most important for the first birth to be born at home. Because a lot of people say, oh, the first one I'll have in the hospital. If everything goes okay, I'll do the second at home. And he's like, no, it has to be the other way around. The first one is the most important to have at home. Because if in a second you have to go to a hospital, you won't let people just do things to you.
Yeah.
You will stand your ground as a woman because you could do it the first time.
Yes.
It's very incredible. I have women who come to a home birth, you know, after having a hospital birth. And it's so incredible how this trauma is imprinted in them. That they're like, you have to pull the baby out. In the moment of the birth, they relive it.
Yeah.
So they lie down on their back. Nobody's telling them to do it.
Yeah.
But no first-time mom would do that.
Yeah.
So I think, for me, a home birth is the most safe option. And then transporting from a home birth, you know, in case of a problem to a hospital is still safer than doing the whole thing in the hospital for me, because safety for me is doing it naturally, doing it physiologically, how you're meant to.
Yeah.
And in the hospital that won't happen.
Yeah.
That just won't happen. You'll be intervened.
Yes.
And so one intervention leads to another one, leads to another one, leads to another. So that's the chain of interventions that we have. And also it's like fear. Fear creates tension in your body, and tension creates more fear, and then it's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So I think those are the two reasons why you should stay at home.
Yeah.
The problem is society and the way we see it. And this book goes really deep on like finding what you need. You have one life, it's yours to live. So the decisions are yours. Your body is yours.
Okay, so the one other thing is what women might have in their mind is like no epidural, no, like won't this be incredibly painful? Like how will they deal with the pain if they don't have what the hospital says that you need, which is sometimes an epidural or pain relief?
Actually, I think women who are scared of pain will have less pain at the birth. It's the women who are like, oh, I will totally breathe through everything that will be hit like a freight train with everything. The women who are like, I won't have an epidural, you know, the ones who are like, well, I might chicken out because I think it's healthy. That's a healthy attitude because it's hard. Nobody says it isn't hard, but all of humanity has done it before you.
Yes.
And that's should give you like a huge like I can do it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you should read about other women's experiences and say, wow, if this woman in Uganda could do it in the middle of the forest, or this woman in Sweden, you know, like I can do it too.
Yeah.
we and at the birth we actually there's a moment where you can really connect with all the women, all the grandmothers who all our they're not forefathers, they're foremothers, no?
Yeah.
All our ancestors who've given birth, and suddenly they're all there holding us, holding this space. So it's so sacred to make it's crazy that it's become this industry of fear.
Yeah.
And it's really sad that our generations are being born in this way, and it will change the face of this earth the way we're born. Definitely.
So, yeah. You're saying in the last 200 years, if you think about that every person in the history of the world before the last 200 years was birthed this way. Every person that's come into existence, every mammal on Earth
Yes.
goes through this.
But we deal with one issue in a different way.
What do you mean?
Okay? And that's the central issue, and that's death. So modern medicine has made the way we face death very weird.
Yeah.
Like most of our ancient tribes have ways to deal with loss and death.
Yes.
But today and age, nobody's allowed to die.
Yes.
Not a fetus, not a baby, not a woman, not a... And so I think, you know, where maternal mortality is really high, it's where women are really oppressed. It's like in countries where female genital mutilation is really high. So, I mean, it's obvious women are going to die. We need to talk about the violence against women and how many die from the violence, you know, throughout this whole process. But, you know, the medical system says you won't die because I'm here.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe that. So I think we have to look at death, because every time we create a life, the only thing that's 100% sure is that we're going to create death as well.
Yes.
For this being. We don't know when, we don't know where, but the theme of death just comes together with pregnancy. And so it's really easy to scare a woman because she's already processing this idea in her body, in her system, that, you know. And so a lot of social concepts like on death, but also that it's the woman's fault if she's not going to do what she should be doing, what's societal norm. So those are huge pressures on us to create the future societies, no? And
how do you think it impacts their ability to grow as adults in society?
I think it's terrible because if we choose on the fear of death, then if that fear is going to dominate us, it will dominate us for the rest of our lives. So many women who've been through cesarean sections later on in life need to take medication because of anxiety of dealing with life. And also, like, the way they raise the children, it's like your body wasn't able to do it. That's the message they get. And so that's how they treat when their kid gets sick. They're asked 100, everyone else, but a woman who's really given birth to this baby, is like instinctually knows what's up with this baby. There's like a connection. And it's still, I mean, I have 8 children. There's still moments I'm anxious. And I think, what will happen if my child dies, right? It happens all the time because that's what happens. We're all gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't get me wrong, like not because you had a C-section everything will go wrong, because the human potential is really big and sometimes C-sections are necessary. And I think if we can understand all these processes, we can work through it. But it's really a big thing, and there's really a lot of work to be done. No, and also long time studies should be done. What happens with your uterus that's been open 2 or 3 times? You know, is there high risk of uterine cancer? Further down the line, what are my choices, you know?
Or even like a child, of like if they didn't go through the birthing experience themselves and they were like ripped from their womb.
Exactly, and there's really some people that have to ask themselves the question, and it's very profound, like, you know, like maybe 200 years ago I wouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
Now I'm here.
Yeah.
But still, we're very resilient, the humans. I mean, I probably would have died before I had children because I got antibiotics at some point.
Yes.
But the question is, what if we would have been born naturally? I would have, gotten mother's milk, which I didn't, and everything happened on the own rhythm. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten so sick further down the line.
Yes. But also that's like the point of, you're talking about like the dominance of like modern medicine. It's like, and de facto that cesarean is for everyone and this model is for everyone. And you mentioned that it is for some people. Some people need cesarean, some people need these interventions, but it shouldn't be the rule.
But they should be supported according to this intervention, not like it's okay, it's just not, like our society is very living in lots of denial about realities. And I think so, like my book is also talking about like the social aspects. Like medicine has become the social norm and everyone accepts is born into it, and most women get pregnant, they don't even ask. They're just like, I'm gonna go to the hospital, have a baby, because that's what everyone does, no?
Yeah.
But if you really ask yourself, wow, I'm an individual human soul that was born in a body and now I have this experience on earth and I can actually do whatever I want with this, and I'm not like forced.
Yes.
And then suddenly as a woman you feel forced into something that your body and your inner soul is saying, no, this is not cool for me. I don't like my visits with the doctor and the ultrasound. They're just not cool. Yeah. I don't feel good, but I don't dare say anything because that's what everyone does.
Yes.
So this book is about waking up and like trusting yourself and saying, you're allowed to do it differently. And it's scary because we, as women, we're told also, to look pretty and obey everything you just have to do what has to be done. And I think that's why it's like a social movement for women, and it's very empowering to say, no, this is not what I want. This doesn't go with me. And yeah, I didn't study medicine, and it's not like I don't want to not respect him, but like I know what's happening to my body. I can feel it. I'm connected with my baby. I don't need to see it on a screen.
Yes.
And I just want to kind of live through this thing without knowing all these things.
Yeah.
That scare me.
Like the precise length of the baby's spine compared to every other baby that's ever lived.
Exactly.
It's weird.
I remember with my first 4 children, I did like 2 ultrasounds, all the pregnancy, one at the beginning, one at the end. And then as a midwife, I saw so many things. I'm like, why am I gonna do that? Like, no, I'm just gonna go I don't want to do an ultrasound. So I had my other babies with no lab work, with no ultrasound, and it was the best thing.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I had that freedom to do that. And someone else could say I'm very irresponsible, and a lot of people said that, right?
Yeah.
That I'm being very irresponsible, and then those things are on me. And I'm like, they are. Because in the end, who's going to live with the baby? You, who's telling me I'm irresponsible, or me?
Yeah.
So I'm actually being very responsible.
Yeah.
Because I know that, freedom is huge responsibility. But in the end, nobody's gonna support you with your baby and you.
Yes.
And maybe your partner, and maybe your family.
Yeah.
I didn't have a family that ever supported me. They had no interest. It's like, it's your life, it's your whatever. So, but then they said they wanted me in a hospital for the baby safety, and I'm like, and so why should that be your choice? Are you gonna take care of my kid?
Yeah.
And when I was 41, I had my last baby, and I had to get because I was working at university, and they said, oh, we need from the doctor that you're pregnant, like proof. So I went, and they're like, oh, we're sending you straight to a C-section because you're 41 weeks and you're 41 years old, you're high risk. I'm like, excuse me, I just came for a document. And they were like, yeah, well, if you die, it's your responsibility. And then I'm like, okay, so if, let's say, I go right now for a C-section and I die on that table, will you make yourself responsible for me and my 8 children?
Yeah.
No. Well, there you go. Like, what is this whole talk about responsibility?
So that's an interesting point. It's like the phrase of like my body and my choice, and it's no longer a choice when you participate in that system, really.
Exactly. Yeah, my body, my choice is a phrase for the abortion movement.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, it's all cool when you're a young woman and you have your rights, and as soon as you get pregnant,
Yeah.
that kind of, you're not capable of making any more decisions. Like, the system's making it for you.
Yes.
And other people, not just the system, our society, because that's why we created, our mind created the medical model and let all these people take control over women. So somewhere a lot of men thought it was cool, I just bring my wife to the hospital, wait for them to tell me it's born, and and that model worked fine, but it didn't, because women were really suffering, and it's not really spoken about. It's like atrocious what's happening all around the world in the hospitals. Like, Amnesty International would be on this if they actually knew what was happening. But even women don't talk about it. It's like it seems to me like a woman who was raped, and then they're just like, yeah, but maybe it was the way you dressed, maybe it was the way you provoked him, so maybe just don't say anything. And I feel it's like the same. We come out completely broken from a hospital birth, we don't say anything. And then I have women in the red tent with me, like 20 years later, their whole life was affected by it. And their whole motherhood, like you said, like being mothers. How were they mothers? And how were they spouses?
So we've been at like 35 minutes, so I kind of want to understand it, like, before we go, is there anyone that this is not for? Might not be a good fit for?
Well, I think if it's like if you're trying to fit in, not listen to your own inner voice, then I don't think the book is for you.
Yeah.
And everyone else who really wants to go dig a little deeper in themselves and try and find words of truth and liberation, that book is for them.
Okay. And where can they get this?
They can get the book online.
Yeah.
Like just hitting the link below.
Okay.
Really easy.
And maybe you can give people an idea of where they can find more about you online. Do you have an Instagram handle or something like that? Where they get...
Yeah, I have Instagram, which is I have several movements, which is la Cueva de la Partera, the Osa Mayor Foundation, and then my personal Instagram, which I might get off soon.
But we'll link that below this
yeah, we'll
video.
link it below all the links.
Yes, it'll be somewhere. That'll be down there. So, any encouragement as last words for the woman that is going to take this journey, and she might be in a situation in which her family doesn't understand quite, her friends might not understand, but she believes that this is right for her. Like, any words?
Yeah, I think you just, I mean, this book is like a self journey, and it doesn't matter. What is it? It's not about reaching your goal. It's about the journey, about you doing it. And maybe sometimes you make decisions that are not like 100% true with what you want, and you make, like, how do you say, you make deals.
Yeah.
That's okay, because life is, will give you other opportunities. So it doesn't matter. For many women, it's become like a goal. I have to have this home birth and reach it. No, you don't. It's all about your spiritual process. So the book is really about starting it. It doesn't matter what happens, and it will keep going for the rest of your life, until you're a grandmother. So I think these are processes, because it's the mother medicine. And the mother medicine is for everyone. It's for men, it's for babies, it's for other women, it's for children, it's for our daughters, it's for our grandmothers. The mother medicine is for the whole planet.
Yes.